don't think we've ever started on time before, so this is really great. Good evening and welcome to the American University Museum at the Katzen Arts Center. This is an exciting night for us because it's the first opportunity we have to show work we are receiving from the Corcoran Legacy Collection. We feel a great responsibility to care for the work that we are receiving from the Corcoran and to make it accessible here in Washington and to care for it. So I am very pleased that we can begin with Tony Podesta's gifts to the Corcoran and American University. I think you will agree this is a really great place for us to start. On our panel tonight is Anthony Podesta, prolific collector, fearless supporter of contemporary art, with a special focus on challenging and provocative work by international artists, most of them women. He is a passionate philanthropist, serving on boards and committees for the Kennedy Center, the Guggenheim, the National Gallery of Art. He was a member of the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities under President Bill Clinton. The Washington Post describes him as a power collector. We just call him Tony. Jennifer Sakai is a professor of photography at George Washington University. Thank you for being here. And Klaus Ottmann is the chief curator and deputy director for academic affairs at the Phillips Collection. That's the little museum just 3 miles down Massachusetts Avenue. And then we have, very pleased to have two artists in the show with us. We have Ottonella Mocellin. She's a Berlin-based Italian artist. She earned there her BA and master's in public art from the Chelsea College of Art. Her more intimately scaled photographs are on our third floor. Barbara Liotta is a sculptor living in Washington, D.C. She has exhibited at the Corcoran Gallery of Art, the Phillips Collection, the World Bank, the Mexican Cultural Institute, and in embassies around the world. Her suspended, shattered stone sculptures have been exhibited many times here at the American University Museum. I'm going to begin with a question for Tony. And I hope this can be a conversation. We'll start off with some questions, but I hope that we can have a conversation here as we go along. Tony, I know you seem to be everywhere in the art world. If it is May, you must be in Venice. If I were interviewing an artist, I would ask him or her some questions about their process. Could you talk about your process? In the catalog, you give credit for your early conversion and subsequent addiction to art collecting, to different collectors, dealers, and curators in Washington. Do you still seek the advice of others, or are you following your own muse, as they say?
I guess I talk with many people about art, and I read a lot, and I travel a lot and see a lot of art, and so it's not a formal process. I've never really had an art advisor, which some people who collect art have. I've always thought that was the best job, and I wanted to keep it for myself. You know, I started out a long time ago. I had a friend who was on the board of the WPA, the Washington Project on the Arts, and I somehow or other ended up going to an auction or two and found and bid on a couple of things, and gradually I started with galleries in DC, and then I traveled to New York, and then I sort of traveled around the globe looking for interesting artists and meeting them in odd places and having conversations with them. Most of the artists whose work is in the show are people I have met. Some of them have become my friends. Some of them, a few of them I've never met, but I just love the work. So it's not a very organized process, but it involves a lot of frequent flyer miles And I'm leaving I'm leaving next week for the Bologna Art Fair, which has really good food, and then I'm going to an opening of an Australian artist in Copenhagen. So that's kind of next week. So I do this. I've been doing this for many years, and hope the airlines will continue to sell me tickets.
Thank you. Well, Klaus and Jennifer, please tell us about your curatorial process. Klaus, you selected the sculpture for this exhibition, and Jennifer, you selected the photography. Did you collaborate on your selections in order to put together such a coherent show? How did you work together? This is not a normal thing to have two curators sort of taking different aspects.
I think we each selected the work that we were interested in. We consulted with each other, so we were able to see, I was able to see what sculptures Klaus was considering and showed him the photographs that I was wanting to exhibit. And we put a lot of work into walking through the museum, considering where the work would go, what would highlight each work, I think, the best. So we definitely consulted each other on the selections.
Yeah, so I love collaborating, and so it was really nice. We haven't actually met before this project, so
Well, speak right into your microphone so they can hear you.
yeah. So it was nice to work with you, and I think you did a terrific job, by the way.
Likewise.
So, and you had a much bigger job than I had, so. But I think it really came together. I always try to create some interesting dynamics and conversations between different works of art, and so I tried a little bit to do the same. Here, I kind of knew where things were going to go on Jennifer's list, and then of course things do change during the installation, but I think it worked out still really well.
Well, I know you were both familiar with the Podesta collection. You were too, Jennifer, right? Before you took this job on, can you tell us about your history with this work and with Tony's aesthetics in general?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be able to view some of Tony's work when he's had salons and shows, and really had a lot of respect for the collection that he's built and the way it reflected international artists and a lot of women artists. So that was always very intriguing and commendable to me. And when I got the list of the photographs to consider, it was sort of an embarrassment of riches to go through and really see what it was that stuck out to me and what I wanted to pull from to make sort of a cohesive statement.
And I've known Tony for, I think, almost 20 years now. I actually met him when I was working on my first really major museum exhibition, which happened to be in Washington, D.C. in 2000. It was the Wolfgang Leib retrospective at the Hirshhorn. And Tony at the time owned two wonderful sculptures that I borrowed from him. And I think that's the first time I met him. And of course, since then I've had many wonderful opportunities to learn more about Tony's collection. And he's just one of those very, very rare collectors, I would say extremely fearless and open and experimental, and also someone who really is not a trophy collector. He has an extremely, as you heard, he travels all around the world. He's in that very privileged position that most museum curators are not in, that he can travel, all around to all these various art fairs and biennials and see so much wonderful work. And he has not only brought together an absolutely amazing and intriguing collection that's extremely diverse, and yes, with many, many women artists, which is really remarkable, but also has been extremely generous and has been donating to many museums in this town and other places, including the Phillips Collection, of course, AU. And museums today would be in a very bad place without people like Tony today.
Jennifer, can you talk about the themes you found in the collection and expand upon your notion of created narratives in which the photographer is telling a story or setting a stage? Did you find these themes in the collection, or did you bring them with you when you took the job and selected work accordingly?
I found that the collection had that theme running through it a lot of projection of self or invented reality or invented self, some of which dealing with women at a younger age. So some of the works, like the Margie Geerlink's Young Woman 1 and Young Woman 2, where it's a young child and she's holding a crocheted breast kind of up to her chest, speaking to the process of aging, speaking to her future. So really showing a future identity. Other photographers, Helen van Meen, who is Dutch, who photographs also young women and also some young men, but at a time, at an age not unlike Sally Mann at 12, where you're sort of on the precipice of becoming. But her process is totally different. She photographs outdoors, almost using that sort of Dutch painterly light with beautiful colors. She directs every single image of her sitters. And, the result is different, but the process is, sort of the same. The most dramatic would probably be the Anna Gaskell work from the Hyde series, those which, those were based in a Grimm fairy tale where the young woman is trying to escape the marriage proposal of her father. And so they have this very gothic feel. It could be hide and seek. It could be the literal hide of hiding underneath these animal pelts, as in the Grimm's fairy tale story. And they're set in this sort of dark mansion-like setting by candlelight. They have a very sort of horror movie or, gothic feel. So they really invent narratives for these characters, and it's up to you to sort of translate them and take from them, what you find.
Well, Tony, I wonder if are you aware of these themes that you seem to be following, teasing out, bringing to us? Is there any conscious kind of effort at that, or is this responding to, some other kinds of input?
No, I think it's probably worth saying that that there's a larger group of works, some of which are not photographs or sculptures, that I gave to the Corcoran.
Tony, talk into your mic.
I'm sorry, that I gave to the Corcoran, and the only thing I had to do with this show is asking Jennifer and Klaus to make the selections they made out of the work, and we sort of agreed at the beginning that we would do photography and sculpture, and my hope was that they would divine themes out of that work, and they would select the work. I had nothing to do with the way the work was installed, or they did all the hard work. I had the fun of going around and collecting all of these things and making them be available to the Corcoran and to the American University Collection. I don't know if some of you may not know about when the Corcoran closed. The National Gallery was put in charge of all of the work, and I had given about 200 works to the Corcoran, and the National Gallery kept 100 of them, and the other 100 I got to give away again a second time. They were kind enough to ask the living donors, of whom there weren't as many as you might imagine, and I had to sit around and look at the 100 works and figure out where would a good home be, and I've always had great respect for this museum, and thought that this would be a home for a goodly share of those 100 works, and then Klaus and Jennifer did the rest.
Well, thank you, Tony, for that. As Klaus was saying, curators and small museums don't have the budget to get around and see what is happening in the world on, some kind of, cutting edge. And so you've really made it possible for a lot of institutions to get to participate in the contemporary scene in a way we wouldn't be able to. So appreciate that. Klaus, the sculpture seems less narrative than the photography. And the non-traditional materials used by the artists sometimes seem to become the subject matter. We have styrofoam, foam core, balloons, an aquarium-like home built for an animatronic moles, and other eccentricities. Is there a larger narrative for these provocative objects?
Well, not really. So I worked with a much smaller subset, of course, of objects, and it wasn't really possible to really create themes out of that. I think the material presence is really what I also addressed in the catalog essay, is really what is the most striking about most of these works. But again, I think it's amazing to me that Tony collects things that many collectors and museums, I would say, would have more difficulties. Things that are so fleeting, little cardboard creations that are you're not really sure if they're standing or not, or if they're going to fall over. Pieces out of styrofoam. So it's a remarkable collection. And what I always love is that every time I come to Tony's house, I see things, new things on the walls, and I don't know what they are. So, but I always have to ask, what's that? Or who made this? Because he sees so much more than anyone else and discovers so many things. And so it's a great learning experience. I did not know all the artists that are in this show here. And it was wonderful to learn about them and to work with them in the space.
I suppose there's a good time to listen to registrars, and sometimes you just have to ignore them and take a chance that what we're receiving is we're going to be able to take care of it.
And I just want to add, this was pretty challenging, especially for the sculptures, the installation, and you people did a tremendous job, building things and figuring out how to install these things. It was really remarkable.
It was a mystery at times. We're going to get to the artists here in a second. Don't you worry. You'll have the last word anyway upstairs. But Jennifer, could you talk about the landscapes you selected for this show? Really interesting landscapes. The locations of the landscapes never seem to be identifiable. What drew you to these selections?
I think that was one of the things when I was looking through the work of making a connection between the landscapes and the portrait work, which the portrait work and the figure work is very strong. And all of the portrait work had this theme running through it of, you bring to each picture kind of your own experience, and then you're evaluating what the photographer is showing you based on that. And the landscapes had this wonderful nebulous quality that had that same note to it. There's an Irish photographer, Claire Langan, who had film stills, I think those are the ones you're talking about, that are these large panels of just blue and green, almost abstract expression, like more than a traditional Thomas Cole landscape. And I felt like those really, in that same vein, had kind of an emotional narrative quality to it. They were taken from her stills from her video, 40 Below, which in itself is a really interesting piece. But those really spoke to me, as well as photographer Jenny Ridehagen, which I think I'm butchering that, but who sets up these, I won't call them still lifes because they're real life, but it's where nature is sort of invading a personal space or an interior space, and it speaks to the relationship between ourselves and nature and the barriers there. And that was one of the things I liked about the landscapes in the collection, is they did also have that mysterious quality. I think that some of the portrait work has as well.
The landscapes. The landscapes were pretty extraordinary. And one of the artists, is it Yon Kive? Kve? Kve. Well, you know, I'll just share a story. You know, people interpret art according to its context, and so people were wondering if those landscapes weren't in fact test sites for atomic explosions. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I mean, I think that's, you know, the Mads Gandrup series that were originally 16 photographs are just so arresting in their beauty, and they're taken in all different locales, the United States, Morocco, Iceland, and they have sort of a universality of appearance. They're horizon line of sky and land. And so, you know, on one hand, they feel very familiar and they feel like the land we know, but I think on the other hand, there's something about the other in them that is really appealing as well.
So Barbara and Ottonella, could you talk a little bit about your relationship with Tony? How did he find you? And what does your inclusion in the Podesta collection signify about your work being placed in this context? Is it going to be seen differently from now on?
Okay. Hello. I met Tony 20 years ago. I was doing my second one-person show in Italy, in Turin. And so I was really at the beginning of my career, and Tony was there for Artissima, and he came to visit the show and he bought it all, videos, installations, photographs. So for me it was like really, really incredible at the time, and his enthusiasm really gave me a lot of, I don't know, a lot of security and strength to go on with my work, also because I was working with a really small gallery, and this person was so enthusiastic about art and about what we did that I was, of course, it was something really, really important for me and for my future career. And then we remained in touch. We saw each other again. He kept on buying other works from me and from a lot of other young Italian artists. And I remember visiting Tony when I was in 2002. I was in New York for the PS1 residency, and me and my husband went to visit him. And I remember when I went to see his house, it was incredible because there was work everywhere, and you could really see the passion. And you know, I really agree with what Klaus said, that Tony is a really special collector because he has a lot of passion and he's not afraid of buying the wrong stuff or like having to follow a trend or anything. So yeah, that's how we met, and it's wonderful to have met him again. We haven't seen each other in a long time, so I was really happy to be able to be here.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say a little bit about the whole structure that holds it up before I talk about Tony, if that's all right. The artist gets to pretend they're the diva, but actually none of it happens without, number one, the institution, which takes this gorgeous space and not only allows us to show our work, but actually helps us. They talked about how hard it was to install the show, and I'm sure that Jack will never forget when he built me a ramp so I could show a 25-foot river of shattered stone falling out of a high window.
Well, that wasn't the most challenging one.
I don't know, it came close.
I think the 35-foot long hanging.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
That's what I mean. They don't, Jack doesn't say no. He just figures out how to help one realize this vision. And then you have a curator who picks your work, which is really thrilling, and explains it. I was saying to Klaus, I was reading the catalog this morning, and it made clear to me something that, although I read a lot about art and about the kind of art I make and the kind of art I like to see, and it still made articulate something that was a mushy concept to me and will inform what I do, so that the ability to catalog it and explain it and present it is really important. And then you get to Tony, who I guess I've known 30, 40 years now, a long time, and has, through decades, supported my work in a way that is so important to me, and who spreads such a completely broad and democratic net that he looks at both what the world has told us is important and at so much else and at all the rest of us, and takes it and cares about it and thinks about it. It's not just impulse, I think it has to do with vision, but then goes and supports it. And it's extraordinarily important and really thrilling.
Well, when you think of art, you think of, lonely artists working in their studios. And it's such a collaborative world, all these people. The preparator, where would be without the guy that can really figure out how to make it look the way it needs to look, or the registrar who needs to take care of it and to make sure that we don't do bad things to it. The lighting guy, yeah. So, it is a big community that's involved in every show, really. So thank you for pointing that out. So do you have any questions of each other?
Yeah, Tony, do you ever get tired of something and put it aside?
I don't think that's ever really happened. I think I've always felt, and for more than 20 years, have been populating the museums, mostly of Washington, a little bit in a couple other places that I've had relationships with. I feel like I'm a steward of the work, and I help affirm and support artists in that thing. But that's sort of all in private. But the most important thing is for more people to see the work in a public institution. And so every year I give away a lot of things. And when I was younger, I used to, at the end of the year, I would buy 100 and give away 20. Now I'm buying 10 and giving away 100. So eventually I won't have any more art in storage, but probably that will never happen.
I'd like to ask Ottonella about her work, how you see it. We were talking last night about, it was occupying this psychological space is what you were trying to show through those 6 photographs, those 6 imagery. And I really especially love the one that we discussed of In the Darkness. And now that you are looking at some of them again and they're presented again, how do you feel now when you look at them?
It's really, to see the work again, I was really moved by it. And I'm really happy that my work has been chosen. And the first thought that I had when I saw that picture is I thought 20 years after, I'm still trying to find my place in the darkness, because it's a theme that has been with me ever since. So, yeah. I'm actually quite, there is a thread that connects all my work, and I now collaborate with my husband, but we do work a lot about dark spaces of life, and not necessarily looking at it as dark, but we do explore difficult and dark situations. We just did a project for Manifesta, and we were interviewing 2 blind people. So this idea also of darkness as a state of mind is always persistent in my work. So, yeah, I was very happy because that's the first like gut feeling that I had when I saw the picture. Was like, I still feel like I'm walking around in darkness looking for something. So that's the first thing.
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about Tony and the relationship that Tony has with artists and with museums, which I think is really remarkable. There's a wonderful rapport, really, kind of that goes on, and that I've learned to really appreciate in my time here now for 8 years in DC. Tony's not only an extremely generous donor, giving works to museums, including the Phillips Collection for many years, but he likes to connect people. He likes to help artists. He has dinners at his house, and he brings together artists and gallerists and collectors and curators, and it's really wonderful. There's kind of an ongoing rapport and discourse that goes on. For instance, just as an example, it's not related to this exhibition, but an exhibition that's opening in a month at the Phillips Collection. Earlier last year, I mentioned to Tony that I went to a studio of a local artist, Maggie Michael, many of you know, and that I said I was really intrigued and I was thinking of doing something with her at the Phillips. And he said, oh, I got one of her paintings. Do you want it? And I said, well, send me a picture. So now we have the painting, and it's a beautiful, big, very big painting. And it's becoming kind of one of the centerpieces of an installation that we're doing that's opening February 21st at the Phillips. It's part of a series that I initiated when I started there called One-on-One, where we ask a contemporary artist to pick or select an artist from our collection and juxtapose her work with the work from the collector, from our collection. So Maggie selected Arthur Dove, and it's going to be Maggie Michaels and Arthur Dove. So it's just one large gallery, and Tony's piece will be a centerpiece, and it's kind of initiated that dialogue, which is really nice.
That's a great series that you do. Any other questions within the group here? Tony, do you have any questions for anybody?
No, I've spent so much time talking to the five of you over many years that it's just I wanted to. It's not a question, but I wanted to thank the whole AU Museum team for doing an extraordinary job with presenting this collection. Jack is a great leader for this institution with a wonderful eye, but he can't do everything, and there are a lot of other people who do.
There are a few other people that help out.
There are a few other people who help him.
Yes, we have a great team here. Thank you for acknowledging them. Yeah. So why don't we open it up to the audience then? If anybody has a question, there are people running around with microphones ready to magnify your voice. Back there? Way back there? There we go. Oh, okay.
My question is pretty straightforward. In all the years that you've been...
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry, I don't have the microphone.
Whoops, and turn it on too.
There we go. How about now? There we go. In all of your years collecting, was there ever a particular piece that you saw that you made the decision not to purchase, that you look back and regret that you didn't get to purchase that one particular piece? And if so, is there an example or a story behind it? Thank you.
Well, I think there's always the one that got away in fishing and in art, and sometimes you when you hesitate, you lose out on something. That's happened to me with especially when you go to art fairs, people run around and try to buy everything that's good right away. And some people dress up as workers with tool belts in order to get in early so that they can seem to be installing work.
Have you ever
really
done
are
that?
running around buying art. I think the thing I wanted to emphasize is that sometimes there's work of Ottonella's or Barbara's or some of the other artists in the show, which the one that I really wanted, someone else got there first, but that's okay. I think the more important thing is that artists who make great work have an opportunity to send that work into people's homes and then into museums eventually, oftentimes. So so I don't. There's no big fish that got away from me that I can't sleep over. But I have many wonderful memories of doing things like buying the whole show. I bought all of Ottonella's show. The Anna Gaskell Hyde Works, that was one show. There are only a few of them in this show, but I bought the whole show. Mads Gumdrop, who's the landscape painter with the horizons, I bought the whole show. But especially when you buy photography, it's usually editioned pieces. And in that we decided to only do photography and sculpture, you can usually, unless you're really slow, you can usually find an edition.
Let's see, another question? There was somebody back there, or right behind there?
Is it on? This question is for Tony. You mentioned giving away a lot of the art that you buy, and so I'm just wondering, are there perhaps one or two pieces in your home that you're so attached to that you think, I could never part with these pieces, and if so, which ones are they?
I try to give away some of everything so that some of everything ends up somewhere, as opposed to hanging on to my three favorite artists forever. There are things that are like installed in the ground in my house that are harder to dig up and give away. But we actually did that with one Olafur Eliasson piece last year that went to the Phillips collection, and so we actually had to dig it out of concrete and sort of it was a major construction job. So everything will eventually go somewhere, and there are probably a few artists I'm particularly attached to for a time, and I have them. But I also rotate the collection a lot, so that every year or so I'll take everything down and put up all new stuff, and therefore keep it fresh for me and fresh for other people who might have a chance to see it.
Do you still remember the first thing you ever bought, and do you still have it, if you do?
I'm not sure what it was. I have a database with everything in it, and there must be something with 0001, but I haven't actually looked. So I'll take that as a homework assignment.
Any other questions, comments, observations? Oh, back by the door? Okay, you're next.
Is this on? I had a question for Tony. I wondered whether when the Corcoran was dissolved, did you have any input in the decision to bring these works here to American? And did you take any works back?
We weren't offered the option of taking the work back. And, pardon me, the Corcoran, the overseers of the Corcoran and the gave, I mean, the court decided, inconsistent with Mr. Corcoran's will, that it was best to give the whole collection to the National Gallery of Art, and then the National Gallery got to take everything, anything it wanted, as much as it wanted. And they took a lot of it. They took thousands of works from the Corcoran collection. And then the question became, what do you do with, the National Gallery didn't take all these other things, what happens to them? And so I briefly referenced this, but they came to me and said, you know, there are 100 things that the National Gallery didn't take. Do you have views about where they should go? Do you want to do that? And so I actually got an image of each of those 100 works, and you know, called up Jack and called up Klaus and called up Susan Sterling at the National Museum for Women in the Arts, and called up the Smithsonian American Arts Museum, and we sort of worked out an arrangement that each of those museums got you know, aside from American University, got 6 or 8 or 10 works, and then American University got the lion's share, because I thought it would be a good thing to have a lot of the Corcoran collection that wasn't going to be at home in the National Gallery to be in this great place.
I have a question. Did you have to ramp up, or I didn't think that you had such a significant permanent collection here. How much did you have to shift to bring in this gift?
We're doing lots of ramping. It's been going on for about 2 years. We have a new storage space down Massachusetts Avenue where the law school was. And no, it's a big project. You have no idea what 9,000 works of art actually is. You know, I mean, it's like overwhelming. If you actually, like, you've handled one work of art, now imagine 9,000. So it's a big challenge. It's going to force us to, you know, grow up a lot and get, you know, more sophisticated, and that's fine. You know, maturing is good. We're not old yet. So, like the Phillips. No, just kidding.
Two.
Just, I don't have a mic. Just as a follow-up to the
Here we go.
or to the answer.
Wait, here we go.
Sorry, is it on? Okay. Just a question to follow what you were saying before. Do you get, as you go through these 9,000 works, as you're moving them, I mean, I, for one, didn't even realize that all of the programs here weren't brought in for a period of time. It's not on?
Speak into it, just like this.
Okay, like that, you're hearing? Okay. And I'm wondering, do you also get to make choices as you go through 9,000 paintings or other works of art? There must be some you decide, yeah, that was yesterday's news. I don't want that today. I've, you know, grown tired. Can you sell and trade and do other things that private citizens do?
Well, there is the opportunity on the basis of unknown conditions to return work. I believe that's something that can be done. On the other hand, we went after this work in the first place, particularly photography. I mean, the Corcoran had a great photography collection, and we just, we're all over it. As far as trading or selling, that's a rather a tricky thing. But at some point, as you try to make sure that you can take care of what you have and are going to be able to make accessible what you have, there may be decisions you need to make, to find other homes. But that's a long process, and we'll get to it. George.
I just wanted to provide another view of the Podesta family. Back in 1990, Tony's brother John was a lobbyist for National Artist Equity, working with Senator Kennedy's legislation on the 1990 Visual Artist Rights Act. And what was interesting about that is that the organization paid out-of-pocket fees for the lobbying effort, but the fee for the company was in art. And most people don't know that side of the Podestas in terms of their advocacy on behalf of individual artists. Certainly buying art is important, but also the rights for artists is very important.
Could I introduce my brother, who was referred to as the other half of the Podesta brothers? He was better at lobbying than I was.
Any other questions? Oh, over here. There you go. Andrea, here. Wait for your microphone.
Having been involved as a volunteer docent at a number of museums, I just want to thank you, Tony, for your generosity and enriching the museums in Washington, D.C. in such a tremendous and democratic way, rather than creating your own vanity museum. It's just really fabulous what you're doing, and you deserve a huge thank you.
Does anybody want to follow that, or should we?
I don't want you to think I'm not vain, though.
Okay, maybe time for a couple more questions.
This is for you. So as you're acquiring these gifts, do you see that it's changing strategically how you view the collections for this museum? And is it giving you new areas?
Would you say that again?
As you're acquiring such gifts, does it change strategically how you view the collections for this museum? And are there new, basically, areas of focus that you can see now this museum moving into for its collections long term, and strategically new areas where you might concentrate?
Well, the answer is yes. We're actually in the middle of starting a strategic plan. I guess that's sort of funny. But we're actually working on these questions. We know we're going to change the second floor of the museum into a place for showing our collections. We had 6,000 works before, so the beginning of our collection actually came from Duncan Phillips, who got us off to a flying start. So yes. The answer is yes. We're just now, it's trying to digest 9,000 pieces and really, try to see it and understand where we go from here. But it's a very exciting prospect, I think. But yeah, we'll be spending a lot of time doing that.
And to put that in context, so the Phillips collection today has just over 4,000 works of art in its collection. So that's a huge number of works.
It's a huge number, yes. Any other questions? In the back.
Yeah, did you acquire any documentation on the collection? In other words, not the pieces themselves, but documentation, text, letters, correspondence, so on.
Is Christiane here? She knows everything, but we got object files for everything, and that was something like 17 file cabinets full of object files. I mean, just the object files alone are, a big deal. But so yes, the answer is yes. All right, well, let's go see the show. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.